everyone, welcome to this week's Halton Hills housing update. So we had inventory on the rise again last week, so let's take a look at the numbers. In Georgetown last week, we had 12 sales, which is a solid week for Georgetown. That's very much in line with what a typical week is in our sales. But what isn't typical is that we had 24 new listings last week. So that is a huge amount of new properties hitting the market. That number really surprises me. I don't know what would attribute to that and why we're seeing such an influx of new inventory, but that is not going to be good news for sellers. Looking at Acton this week, we had 2 sales and 4 new listings. So kind of a normal week in Acton. I mean, we've seen some crazy high inventory weeks and crazy high sales weeks there, but this is sort of a normal week. 2 sales, 4 new listings. Glen Williams and Limehouse both had no sales, but each had 1 new listing. And the rural market saw 2 sales, but 5 new listings. The rural market is just getting hammered with listings and nothing is selling there. So it's not a great story for anyone selling in the rural market right now. The other thing we look at is properties that come off the market, and if they return, if they come off, if they change their price, all of those things. We had 29 properties last week that were impacted with that. That's starting to get very high. I've talked about this before. When we see 29 properties adjusting pricing, coming off the market, it means the market is not a seller's market. We are seeing a lot of sellers having to kind of revise what they're doing to try and spice up their listings to get some attraction. And so 29 properties, you know, that is not great. A few weeks ago, it was only like 5. So 29 is a lot. Of that 29, 12 of them came off the market completely. So that sort of helped to keep our very high week of 35 new listings in Halton Hills at bay a little bit. We also had 13 properties that terminated and then relisted at a lower price to try and again get some attraction to their listings. And we had 4 people who just terminated and came back on at the same price to try and, you know, move up the ranks on realtor.ca and things like that. So 29 properties adjusting means that things are sitting and it's just not a great market for a seller at the moment. If inventory keeps coming on like this, it's going to be a problem. I'm surprised to see the numbers where they are. We had 35 new listings in all of Halton Hills, but 20 of the 35 were over $1 million. So that's really the price point that is going to start feeling very saturated soon. We will be watching inventory very closely because I'm surprised to see these numbers this high in June. So looking at active inventory, we're up in Halton Hills from 208 to 216 active listings. That number would have been a lot higher if we didn't have 12 properties exit the market last week, but we had 216, and the last time we saw that number was in the middle of October, and the October market was absolutely atrocious this year. So not a great story again for sellers, but it is what it is, and we are seeing more sales than we were seeing last October. I mean, we were having weeks where we were having 3 or 4 sales in Georgetown. So, I mean, there's still the buyers and things are still moving in Georgetown and in the other markets too. Well, most of the other markets. But it's just, our inventory is just climbing so rapidly. It's going to be interesting to see where this lands. In Georgetown, we are up from 117 to 123 active listings. It's still not the highest, you know, 130 to 140, but it is getting very high and we are very saturated over $1 million. So looking at our price points, under 800,000 is up from 8 to 11. The majority of those are condo townhomes. We do have some condo apartments on the market. Those are still moving pretty good. It's a pretty transient price point. 800 to $1 million is down from 24 to 21. Like I said earlier, the majority of properties that we're seeing sell are under that $1 million mark, and the majority of properties coming on the market are over the $1 million mark. So under $1 million is still sitting okay. I mean, there's lots of buyers out there. I do think we are probably going to start to see the prices soften given, you know, what's sort of happening in the upper price points, because that it starts there and then it trickles down. So we'll be watching that closely. For right now, that price point is still, it's not crazy busy, but it's moving. 1 to 1.5 million is up from 42 to 47. We are getting into very, very saturated inventories here. There is a ton of stuff available over $1 million, and the 1 to 1.5 is the price point that we are seeing the most price reductions in, and just there's sales, but like people are really having to adjust their pricing downward because of how many properties are on the market right now. 1.5 million plus is up from 43 to 44. I mean, we saw one sale last week over 1.5. You're seeing a handful of sales in the month in Halton Hills over $1.5 million. It is a tough price point to be finding a buyer in right now. That could change with the interest rates dropping a bit. People's buying power is going to be going up. But I think we still have a few more interest rate drops before we start to see that 1.5 million price point start to pick back up again. Looking at Acton this week, Acton is up from 30 to 32 active listings, sitting very high in Acton, very high. Over 30 is a lot there. Glen Williams remained the same at 12 this week. Limehouse is up to 5, and the rural market is down from 46 to 44. So we are seeing high inventory in basically all the markets. These are numbers that just like we have never seen. And I mean, we look at the 216 in all of Halton Hills, and usually Georgetown, when we're at those levels, has, like I said, 135, 140, and the other markets aren't sitting as high. But the numbers that we're seeing in Acton, Glen Williams, Limehouse, and the rural market are like the highest we've ever seen. So we're normally going into the summer with relatively high inventory levels. Not this high, but like they're usually pretty high by the time we get to the end of June. And then through July and August, people sort of slow down on listing their homes, but we find buyers are still sort of active, and then that starts to soften the inventory a bit. Things start to get bought up throughout the summer, and usually going into September is a good month. Whether we're going to follow that trend this year, we haven't followed it the last 2 years. October has been our worst month the last 2 years, but we haven't seen interest rates drop. So are we going to have a busy fall? I don't know. But right now, all I can tell you is that our inventory is sitting very high. The silver lining is we're still seeing some sales, which when inventory gets this high, we often see sales completely drop off. So I'm going to be watching it super closely because the market is in a very, I think, fragile spot here where we could start to see prices really start plummeting here. But as of right now, things are holding relatively okay. Sorry, that was a lot of words today, but that's sort of where we're at in the market, and I'll be back next Tuesday to see if there's any new trends. Have a great week, everyone.